how I used Django to build a mildly complex content management platform and how the tools that it provides that will allow you to do the same in whichever area you want to pursue publishing. Django was designed to be used by publishers and newsrooms, so it's very flexible in that regard. I used it to build a site dedicated to archiving Nigerian movies. If anyone is familiar with something like IMDb, is anyone familiar with how? Yeah. So basically, I was trying to build something like that, and I chose Django to do that. So I'm just going to run through, the little tools I use here and there to get to the point that I am now. So if you're online, you can take a look at the site as I'm talking. It's nlist.ng. That's the link there. But first, let me talk about what it does. Um, Basically, an online database of Nigerian movies and actors, crew people, directors, makeup artists, just one massive directory because we have a lot of movies and they're not being documented. So I took that upon myself. I also I wanted to leverage that, all that info I was getting on people, on those crew people, and using it for a casting dashboard or a casting platform. So you can put up, put up notices for roles you're looking for. People can come in and search based on on characteristics like gender, skill sets, weight, height, stuff like that, and you apply using your Enlist profile that already exists. That's one of the things it does. It's also meant to be something of a community for people in the industry, people that are interested in Nigerian films. You can leave reviews, you can edit. It was also designed to be something like Wikipedia, where people can sign up and add their own info if necessary. Um, News, views, and basically just a form of research. Part of the reason why I'm doing this is, every year they talk about how popular the Nigerian movie industry is and how much it generates and how many movies have been created. And it's not really clear where they're getting this info from. Maybe there's a government body that's tracking it, but for the layman, it's not easily accessible. I wanted to also solve that problem. You can go on IMDb and find out how many movies were made in Hollywood in 2017. You can split that into genres. You can see how many of those directors were female. I feel like that's something we need if we're going to be producing so much content. So that's the basic site. I've talked about all of this, so I'm gonna jump over it. But another thing I also wanted with, I've lost connection. Another thing I also wanted with this site was to provide an API that can be used for other things. You can say cinemas when they are listing new releases. You can get content from the site. You can use it to create anything basically that needs Nigerian movie info. Um, there's private messaging, but that's more related to the casting, notifications, recommendations, which is a new feature that I'm still working on. That is meant to work with people's preferences. So for each movie, you can like or you can add to a list, and based on that information, we can build up like a recommendation engine. If you like this, then you like stuff like this. If you like comedy movies with this actor, here are more comedies with this actor. Here are more comedies in that range. Also with a list and links to other stuff. So this is just a run through of how it looks. But if you go on the site, you can see that for yourself. Question is why, and why Django? Um, I started out working with something like WordPress, and I didn't like that it came with so much baggage. I mean, one could argue that Django also comes with its own set of baggage. But with Django, you can choose as much or as little as you use. You don't have to use the authentication. Sorry. You don't have to use the admin. You don't have to use the ORM. It's designed to be taken apart or used in its full capacity. And I like that flexibility. Also, it runs on Python, which at the time I was more comfortable working with than PHP. So I'm just going to jump over this. I've already gone through this. So, like I said, I started with WordPress and I went to Drupal. If anyone has worked with Drupal, they will know. There's a lot of stuff plugged in. Those platforms are pretty old, so there are a lot of things that they have coupled in that are very hard to take out. Yeah. And I was recommended Python because it's great for working with data, great for analytics. People, nowadays, it's the go-to language for data science. So it was all kind of pointing me in that direction. And it's the documentation, sorry, documentation is fantastic. I've worked with a lot of things, a lot of software, and probably because they're written by developers, they make a lot of assumptions when starting out. So you don't really get how it works or why it's working the way it does. Django has a tutorial in the beginning that takes you, they help you build a poll. And maybe it was just really well written. By the time I was done with that tutorial, I felt like I could build anything using this platform. So I went ahead with it. And of course, like I mentioned, it has a lot of great built-in tools like ORM, the authentication, the admin. The admin was also very important because I would be spending a lot of time there adding content. So I'm going to assume that many of us here are familiar with Django as a framework. I'm not really going to go too much into what they have by default because it's pretty obvious. You know, it's very easy to build your models. They have methods that help you with filtering your models with queries. It comes with an admin you don't have to use, which can be it's actually very easy to customize that admin, which I'll show you in a minute. And of course, you know, they have the authentication. You don't have to think about it. It helps you with your sessions and stuff like that. But I would actually say that if you're going to use Django's authentication, you would want to use a third party because it's kind of at, its, at the level it's at the out of the box is kind of basic. So I used Django All Auth. Django All Auth allows you to integrate social media logins. So people can log in with their Google, their Twitter, and what else? And Facebook. They have like all the other social platforms, but I chose those three because they're the most common. Django Haystack, that's for the search. Uh, there are ways you can go about handling search, but Haystack kind of takes away a lot of those complexities. You just write a few lines describing which fields in your models you want indexed, and whenever you create a new model, it adds it automatically. You don't have to think about it. So I linked that with Elasticsearch primarily because I wanted faceted search. Faceted search is when you get a bunch of search results and you can group by genre or date or other categories. Haystack allows you to do that from within Python. You can also do it within Elasticsearch. They have a dashboard where you can do that, but you can choose not to do that from there, which is one of the good things about Haystack. You can also it also helps you. You can empty your data, your index, and start again. That is useful in cases where you've done a lot of deletes. In my case, right now we currently have about 10,000 listings. Last month, I mistakenly added 3,000 entries that I deleted, and that kind of messed up the index. So I just use one of Haystack's management commands to repopulate that index. Just those little things that make life a little bit easier. Then Soil thumbnail. Basically, for each person or for each movie, you're going to be using a certain image multiple times in different locations and different sizes. What some people do is they just resize the image. With Soil, you can create multiple sizes and it caches them. So you're not, if you're generating a small thumbnail for a person, for instance, what you have is what you need. It's not a large size that has been scaled down. It's an image that has been what's the word? An image that has been regenerated at a smaller size. So that means smaller bandwidth, loads faster, and because the part that image is created and saved and cached, you're not constantly pulling that image down. Those are one of the things I did to increase performance. And that is linked to Django SES. Django SES is used for linking to platforms like Amazon. So if you use Amazon S3, Amazon SCS, those things, it provides a middle ground, and it handles all the fetches. It catches all the errors. It's very useful. I use it and with Sol Thumbnail to store all the thumbnails on Amazon S3. I also use it for handling my transactional emails, which are passed through Amazon SES. So also Django filter. I'm going to demonstrate this one as well. Basically, it's like if you have a model and the model has different properties and you want people to be able to filter using those properties. So for casting, each casting is a movie and you are looking for different roles. Each role has certain characteristics. Either you're looking for a woman who is short and can speak Igbo. You want at a glance to see all the roles that have gender, woman, language, Igbo, size or height, short. Search doesn't really cover that the way I want. I want those characteristics listed out. I want them compiled and counted so you can see 3 rows that match this or 4 rows that match this. That's where Django Filter comes in. It's a very large third-party app, and I'm very happy to have been able to contribute towards it. It's open source, so you can search different kinds of fields, number fields, character fields, kind of things. Django reversion, this was very important. Because you're going to be allowing people to edit, you need to make sure that there's a fail-safe. This is useful in any situation where multiple people will have access to your content. You want to see who's changing what did they change, what field, when. You want it to always be traced. And you want, if something really terrible has gone wrong, you can revert to a previous version. That's where Django reversion comes in. It integrates with the admin. So if you view any item, you can see the history, who's been doing what to it. I use that to keep track of when people edit anything, just to make sure everything's intact. And Django Celery, that's for timed tasks. If something you wanted to do every day at a certain time, you're going to have to integrate with a platform like Celery. Django Celery bridges that gap. It allows you to view it from the admin. So I'm going to just go through, I'm going to show how I use some of these things. Sorry. But before I get there, I also want to talk about the admin. The admin too, I actually didn't use as many things in the admin as I thought I would, but the first one is Django Suit. just to change how it looks. I started using Django in 2014, and by then they're using the old style, and it looked ugly. And again, if I'm going to be spending a lot of time in the admin, I want it to look nice. So I use Django Suit, which is like a UI framework that you set up, and it changes how it looks. I customize it further, which you will see. I use Google Analytics API to build charts in the admin. So I can see how many visitors, thank you, see how many visitors were on the site within the past few days, what movies are trending this week, what people are more popular this week. I use the API and Django hit count to keep track. I could have just used the API, but it doesn't really provide the granularity that I wanted. His count just says if somebody visit this page, okay, I'm going to count it. That's all. That's what I needed for that. The Google Analytics API doesn't provide. I will demonstrate that too. Django Redactor. By default, the admin, while great, it's not. It's very basic. Each field is just plain text. Again, if you're going to be writing articles with rich text, bold and whatnot, you need to add your own plugin to make that easier. I use Django Redactor, and Django Redactor is like a fancy editor, and you can add plugins to it, which I chose to do. So you can insert people into it, an article, you can insert a movie, um, very drag and drop. Django Autocomplete Lite. This is for autocomplete fields. So say for instance, you want to add a movie and the cast. We have about 6,000 people now listed. You can't guess. You can't use a drop down. That would just be ridiculous. So you need to be able to start typing that person's name and get suggestions and pick. That's where this comes in Django Autocomplete Lite. You can create indexes for any model, attach it to a field, and that field would search. Django batch, Django batch uploader. Um, I upload a lot of images per movie, and again, the admin doesn't come with anything to make that easier. This uses jQuery, some jQuery, to allow you to upload multiple images at once. So I'm going to start showing how it looks. This is my admin. Now, if anyone that's familiar with, let me just come out here. Anyone that's familiar with the Django admin, they know how it looks. I heavily customize this to not only match my brand, but to also make some things easier. For instance, if you're adding a title, there are a lot of fields you would need to, you can see the analysis, meta, details, you need to be able to add cast at a glance, crew. So Suit provides a way of arranging your pages into tabs, so it's a lot less scary. So I've split everything here, images, links. This is just for one item. And I did this using Django Suit. Taking a look at this, this is an example of the autocomplete Lite. So if I want to add, say, Omotola, that's how that would work. Sorry, let me just move to the next slide. Also, I modified how images are viewed. So, come here. Time. So this is a custom, this one I didn't use Suit for it, I did it myself. I wanted the images to appear in a gallery format. So I, along with Suit, created a grid to display model items that are images. That's how this looks. It still operates mostly the same way as a typical list view, just that it's giving you a thumb preview. Then Redactor. Let me just show you how I use that. So this is a text field, a text area that's been enhanced with Redactor. You have your bold, strike. You can add as many. They have like a lot of options, but I didn't need them, so these are just the ones I wanted. You can insert an image or a file, and in this case, you can insert a person. So again, it's currently not working. Sorry, but let me see if it works for you. This you can see this here. If you're familiar with WordPress, you know WordPress has short codes, which are like kind of short codes to items. So once you view it on the page, it takes that short code and converts it to something else. In this case, we have this, which if you view it, yeah, if you view it on the page, it converts it to the actual person's name along with a link. This is a feature for the news. So somebody that's writing about a certain movie or a certain person doesn't have to manually put those things in. Also, if something changes, it preserves, it kind of, it changes along with it. If the name changes, if the link changes, as long as the ID stays the same, it will generate the correct name and the correct link. So that's me using Redactor. Then a demonstration of search, for instance, you try that. Okay, I guess I don't have any result for that. Let me see. Yeah, so these are a bunch of results. Many of them don't have images, which is why they look like that. And you can filter, yeah, filter by different categories, year, type. I mean, actually for moving. Okay, sorry, I need results. I'm gonna go to one of the. This is the local version. Very sorry. Let me go to the live version. Okay, so it's a bit more arranged. So you can split the results into titles and people, to type, year, genre. These are all done using Django Haystack. Okay, so okay, just very quickly, just run through the rest of the things I did here. This is the trending stuff I did using the API and hit counts. So past 7 days, Yoruba Demons is very popular for some reason. Left, you can see number of visits. Just, and of course, at the API. API, I used Django REST framework, which is the API plot, module that most Django users use. It's very what's the word? Fully featured. So you can set responses. You can say, okay, this particular API only post. All that you do by building views in your code, and it's something that attaches on, so you don't have to change anything in your models. However they can be converted to an API using Django REST framework. Handles permissions and authentication. I use it also for JS related things. So if you're using like React or Angular, you can use it in conjunction with Django thanks to the REST framework. So very quickly, I just want to go to the things I use for performance. I know my target demographic, so I know the site has to be pretty fast and pretty light. Django comes with things that you can use to track that, like the debug toolbar. Um, it has caching, it has things inbuilt to help with caching. You can cache your templates, your queries. I use mine with Memcache. I use the manifest static file storage that generates versions of all your static files with timestamps. So unless you've changed it, the timestamp never changes. What that means is whatever you have live is cached as well. You know, the browser can tell when something has changed if maybe the file name changes or it expires, which is where manifest static file storage comes in. So image caching, typical minification, gzip, but that's not really Django related. That's more of a server thing. And also, I just try to keep the extras to a minimum. I don't really use a lot of JS on my side. So this is just a look at Django toolbar. You can inspect your SQL queries, you can see response time, how long a page took to load. I was very conscious of this. There are things you can do with your queries and your models to make them faster. For instance, using stuff like prefetch related, queue, select related. So for instance, each page I load the crew for a movie, but there are two models involved, three models actually. The title, the crew, which involves their role, their department, and what their role was. So for each of those roles, I'm loading the person's profile, what they do. So that adds up very quickly, which is where something like prefetch related comes in. So you say get this movie and get everything related to it. It does it in one query as opposed to like 20. Makes things faster. SEO. Django comes with something called sitemaps, generate sitemaps for you. You can break them down per model if you want. That's been very useful for me. A lot of movies now, if you search for them, it used to be the second or third result. That's a result of a good sitemap. Django has something called ping Google, a method. You attach it to your model, so when you save, it automatically pings Google that you've made a change or you've added a new item. Within the next day or two, it shows up in your search results. So those are just like a bunch of things I used to kind of make this as easy for me as possible and to also handle a lot of strange edge cases. So if you're looking to like manage a bunch of content, tons of models that are related in a lot of ways, I think Django comes by default with a lot of things that can be useful, but it also comes with a lot of third-party tools that are even more useful. And they're not as heavy per se as using some of the existing CMSs which are built for every use case. You can bend it whichever way you want. So, yeah, if you're looking to do something, like especially people in media, if you're looking to handle a lot of content, news, articles, I would really recommend Django over something like over the others personally, just for me. Because I've tried to make others perform faster as well, and it hasn't been as straightforward or as easy as it has been with Django. And because also Django was built for news, not built for an all-purpose thing, even though you can use it for that, it has a lot of things out of the box that are very useful. So it can be as heavy as you want, as light as you want, and it's very easy to get started. So if you haven't used it, I would highly recommend. Thank you.